When I pushed the door open, for a second I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. My body froze. The air was knocked out of my lungs. She was there, right in the middle of the room. Her hair was a mess, her face was red, her hands were shaking, and she was trying desperately and clumsily to fix her clothes. Her expression was one of pure terror, as if she had been caught doing the worst thing anyone could do. And in fact, she had. My gaze scanned the room almost uncontrollably, and that's when I saw he was still naked, paralyzed. He held the pieces of clothing in his hands, completely unresponsive, as if his brain was trying unsuccessfully to understand what was happening or plan an escape. The silence was deafening. The loudest sound at that moment was my own heavy, uneven breathing, my chest rising and falling, as if I had been punched and knocked the wind out of me. She looked at me, her eyes wide, desperate. "Rob, no, it's not," she tried to say, but her voice came out weak, broken, almost begging me to believe some lie that even she didn't know what it was. The blood was pounding so hard in my temples that it felt like my head was going to explode. My hands were shaking. I didn't even know if I was angry, in pain and disbelief, or all of the above. What the hell is this?" was all I could say, my voice hoarse, heavy, barely coming out. The guy, pale, stumbled over his own clothes, trying to cover himself and find a way out like a cornered rat. She was still shaking, clutching her dress against her body, but even that couldn't hide the scene I had just witnessed. It was written all over her, in her messy hair, her flushed face, the way she hurriedly pulled her clothes on, the marks on her body, the smell in the air. For a few seconds, I just stood there, staring, trying to understand at what point my life had turned into this. And that's when I felt it. A pain I didn't know was possible to feel. A pain that tore me apart inside. The floor seemed to have disappeared. I just couldn't say anything else. I looked at her. I looked at that guy, and it was as if the world had shut down. My chest tightened. My heart felt like it was going to burst through my shirt, and my head. My head was spinning. It hurt. It throbbed. I just knew that if I stayed there for another second, I would break down or do something crazy. So I turned my back. I left, without saying a word, without looking back, without anything. I just left. I went straight to the barn, as if my body were on autopilot. I grabbed the damn tool I had, theoretically, come back to get. I don't even remember how. All I know is that my hands were shaking so much that I almost dropped it on the floor. I took a deep breath, I held it, and I let it out slowly, trying, unsuccessfully, to organize what was going on inside me. I got in the truck, slammed the door, and without looking back, I sped back to work. The road seemed longer than ever. My head was a mess. The images wouldn't leave my mind. Her face, the way she looked at me, her messy hair, the look of despair. And that guy, still naked, trying to hide as if that would change anything. Why? Was the only question that kept running through my head. Why right now? Why me? As soon as I parked at the farm, I didn't even notice that Miguel was already looking at me from afar, with that look of his. Attentive, sensitive, as if he could read me without me having to say a word. He dropped what he was doing and came toward me, his face full of concern. "Are you okay? What happened?" he asked, looking into my eyes, serious, trying to understand what was destroying me inside. I took a deep breath, looked away, shook my head, trying to pretend it was nothing. "No, it was nothing. Everything's fine." I lied, but my voice betrayed me. It came out weak, hoarse, unsteady. Even I couldn't believe myself. Miguel frowned, pressed his lips together, and stared at me for a few seconds. He clearly didn't believe a word I said. Without saying anything, he went to the water cooler, filled a bottle, and handed it to me. "Here, breathe," he said in a low, calm voice, almost like a silent hug. I took the bottle. My hands were still shaking. I took a sip, and for a second, the taste of cold water brought me back down to earth. I felt my chest relax. My breathing returned. But the lump in my throat, that remained. He sat down next to me, didn't say anything else. He just sat there, looking at me, waiting, as if he knew that sooner or later I wouldn't be able to hold it in anymore. After a few minutes of silence, trying to breathe, to calm down, I put my hands on my face, took a deep breath, and just spoke. When I calmed down, I told Miguel what had happened. He looked at me, completely surprised, his eyes wide, his hand on the back of his neck, breathing deeply, as if trying to understand if he had heard correctly. He was as surprised as I was. I looked down, shook my head, and let it slip, as if I were talking more to myself than to him. My marriage wasn't going well, and after Julia moved to the city for college, everything just got worse. I paused for a second, ran my hand over my face, and finished in a heavier, more bitter tone. I was cheating on my wife with Miguel, as you know, but even so, I never, ever expected her to cheat on me too. The silence between us was heavy. Miguel looked at me, serious, visibly unsure of what to say at first. It took a few seconds. He took a deep breath, came closer, put his hand on my shoulder, squeezed it firmly, and said in that low voice, but full of truth, "I'm here, Rob. Are you listening to me? I'm here with you. You're not alone." And, at that moment, it became clearer than ever that, if there was any place where I felt safe, that place was with him. We worked the rest of the day, but the truth is that I was only there in body. My head was miles away. The whole time, that scene kept repeating itself, like a movie playing over and over in my mind. I didn't want to go home. I didn't want to. I didn't want to look her in the eye. I didn't even know how to walk through that door after what I had seen. At some point, I broke down again and told Miguel. He looked at me, took a deep breath, and in his calm manner, said, "Let's go to my house. My parents are traveling. You can sleep there if you want." I thought for a few seconds, looked at him, and accepted. At that moment, he was all I needed. We finished putting the tools in the truck, tidied everything up in silence, and headed to his house. As soon as we arrived, I went straight to the bathroom. I took a really hot shower, trying, I don't know, to wash not only my body, but everything that was suffocating me inside. But it didn't help much. When I came out, Miguel was already in the kitchen, preparing dinner. That nice smell filled the house, and for a few minutes, the atmosphere even seemed normal. We sat down, had dinner together, talking little, just the basics. He tried to distract me, made jokes, brought up topics, but no matter how hard I tried, my head was still stuck on that scene. It wouldn't go away, no matter how much I wanted it to. Then we went to the living room. We sat on the couch, turned on the TV, but I didn't even know what was on. My eyes were there, but my mind wasn't. The silence grew longer, heavier. When it was time to go to bed, we went to our room. I lay down, trying to find some place inside me that would bring me peace. But it wasn't easy. That's when I felt it. Miguel came closer, slowly. He pulled me close, looked me in the eyes, and without saying a word, kissed me. His lips touched mine in that calm but intentional way. His hand began to run over my body, moving up and down, searching for a place that would make me relax, forget, surrender. But I couldn't. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and simply couldn't do it. My mind wouldn't let me. The knot in my chest, that mixture of pain, anger, frustration, and confusion, was stronger than me. My body wanted to feel, wanted to escape that pain. But my head wouldn't let me. Miguel noticed. He stopped, held my face with both hands, and looked deep into my eyes. "It's okay. I understand. Relax. Just sleep here with me tonight, okay?" He whispered, running his hand through my hair, like someone who cares, like someone who protects. And that's what we did. We lay there in silence. He hugged me tight, and, for the first time that day, I was able to close my eyes and just breathe. The day dawned, and Honestly, I don't think I can even say I slept. I closed my eyes a few times, but my mind wouldn't shut down. My chest felt tight. My stomach was in knots. But as much as I wanted to run away, I knew I had to face it. I got up, had a quick coffee, and before leaving, I looked at Miguel. He was watching me, quiet, worried, as always. I sighed deeply and said, "Take the day off today. Rest. I need to figure this out." He just nodded. He didn't ask any questions. He just looked at me in that way of his that said everything without saying a word. I got in my truck and drove home. The road seemed longer than ever. My heart was racing, my hands were sweating on the steering wheel. And when I stopped in front of the door, I took a deep breath and went inside. As soon as I set foot inside the house, she came towards me, visibly shaken, her eyes red, her face tired. "Rob, forgive me, for God's sake. I made a mistake. I know I made a mistake," she said, her voice already breaking, almost crying. I closed my eyes for a second, took a deep breath, and let it out. "Okay, I forgive you," I said, looking into her eyes. At that moment, she seemed relieved, as if a weight had been lifted off her shoulders. She even took a step forward, trying to hug me, but I didn't let her. I raised my hand, blocking her, and finished firmly. "I forgive you, but I don't want this anymore. We're getting a divorce." She froze. Her face turned pale in an instant. "What? No, Rob, we can work this out. We'll find a way." "Don't do this," she tried, holding my hands desperately. I shook my head, with that pain burning in my chest, but certain of what I needed to do. We lost each other a long time ago. This just confirmed it. The truth is, it doesn't make sense anymore. Not for me, not for you, and you know that. We talked for hours. At first she didn't want to accept it, she tried to argue, to remember what we had been through, the years together, our daughter. But little by little, the words weighed heavily. The truth prevailed. And in the end, she understood. She understood that, as much as it hurt, it was the best thing to do. She packed her things, she took the essentials, and at the end of that afternoon, she left for the city to live with Julia. I stayed, in the house, on the farm, in silence. It's been a year since then. At first, it was difficult. Much more than I imagined. Seeing the house empty, feeling the weight of the silence, looking at every corner, and remembering what was and what would never be again. There were days when I felt like I couldn't take it anymore, that the guilt, loneliness, and pain would swallow me whole. But time passed. Things started to fall into place. The wounds began to heal, and today I can say that I'm fine. In a different way, but fine. Today, looking back at everything I left behind, I can say without fear, I'm happy, really, more than I ever imagined I could be. Life went on, and, along with it, Miguel and I went on too. If before we lived in hiding, full of fear, guilt, and apprehension, today it's not like that anymore. Today, we live our way, without masks, without lies, without fear. The farm is still our place, our world. And, to tell you the truth, I never thought that barn, which in the past was the scene of so much doubt and tension, would today be our refuge. Our place of pleasure, of surrender, of love. It was an afternoon like this. The sun was beginning to set, gilding everything outside. The breeze was blowing lightly, bringing the smell of straw, wood, and the countryside. We were finishing up some work in the barn, but deep down, we already knew how it would end. Miguel dropped his tool, approached me, and without saying a word, pulled me by my shirt, with that look I know so well. Full of desire, full of longing. And me? I also knew exactly what I wanted. Our lips met in a kiss that started slowly but soon became urgent, hot, intense. I held him tight around the waist, pulling him closer, feeling that body that I now know like no one else. Right here, he whispered, almost breathless. I smiled slightly, ran my hand through his hair, pulled him closer, and replied in the same tone. Right here. Without thinking twice, I turned him around, pressed his body against the wooden wall of the barn. His hands went straight forward, holding tight to the boards, as if he wanted to support himself, surrender himself, open himself completely to me. Our clothes fell, one by one, hastily, amid kisses, touches, sliding hands. My hands squeezed his waist, my mouth marked his neck, and he moaned softly, arching toward me, completely surrendered. I positioned myself behind him, holding him tight. His body fit mine as if it were made for it. He was mine, only mine, and he knew it. The sound of our breathing, our kisses, our movements filled the entire barn. And, unlike before, there was no more fear, no guilt, no one to stop us. I moved at the right pace, steady, deep, holding his waist, feeling his body react, moan, press against mine with every thrust. His hands clutched the wall, his eyes closed, his whole body begging me for more. Every touch, every movement, every sigh was pure desire, pure surrender. And I made sure to show him, without a doubt, that he was mine, that I was there, present, whole, dominating every second of that moment. The climax came intense, strong, almost explosive, making us lose our breath, tremble, squeeze each other, as if the whole world had disappeared and only the two of us remained. There, together, without fear, without guilt, completely surrendered. Afterwards we lay there, panting, on the straw floor, laughing softly, exchanging knowing glances, satisfied, free. I don't think we'll ever get tired of this, he said, running his hand over my chest, still with that silly smile on his face. I don't even want to, I replied, pulling him closer, holding him tight, smelling his scent that, today, to me, is the smell of home, of love, of life. If there's one thing I learned from living with Miguel, it's that he simply loved to surprise me. Sometimes, in the middle of work, at the most unexpected moment, in the most random place, he would appear out of nowhere, smiling that smile of his half-mischievous, half-passionate, and I already knew. I knew exactly what he wanted. He would approach slowly, pretending he was just passing by, striking up a conversation as if nothing were wrong. And then suddenly he would surround me, pull me by my shirt, look into my eyes with that look that would melt me, and without saying a word, he would make me understand everything. Come here, he would whisper in my ear, hoarse, full of intention. And that was it. He didn't need to say anything else. Sometimes it was in the barn, sometimes behind the truck. Other times, in the middle of the plantation, or in the shed, in the late afternoon, when the sky was all golden. It didn't matter where. It didn't matter what time it was. When it was just the two of us, nothing else existed. He teased me with the way he touched me, the way he looked at me. The kisses that started out soft and, seconds later, were already charged with desire, urgency, surrender. He threw himself at me, completely, without fear, without shame, without limits. And I made sure to show him, every single time, that he was mine, only mine. Making love with Miguel wasn't just desire, it was more. It was a connection I had never experienced before. It was as if every time was the first time. As if his body was never completely known, there was always more to discover, to feel, to explore. And if there's one thing that became clear to me, it's that with him, there's no wrong time, no unlikely place. We belong to each other. Wherever, however. Once I was in the kitchen, preparing dinner. The open window let in the golden light of the sunset and the warm breeze from the countryside. The smell of food began to fill the room, and I, focused, stirred the pots, chopped the spices, organized everything on the counter. That's when I heard his footsteps approaching. And before I even looked back, I already knew. Miguel. He arrived smiling, in that way I know so well. That slightly mischievous, charming smile he always gives when he's up to something. He leaned against the edge of the counter, crossed his arms, and watched me for a few seconds in silence. I love seeing you like this, focused, he said softly, coming closer. I felt him coming up behind me, and before I could react, his hands slid around my waist, squeezing lightly, and his mouth came straight to my neck. The touch of his lips on my skin made me shiver instantly. You know that like this, all focused, wearing an apron. You're even more irresistible, right? He whispered, his voice hoarse and warm, right in my ear. I tried to hold back a smile, pretending to be focused. Honey, I'm making dinner, I said, trying to sound serious, but my voice was already starting to falter. But he didn't even care. He squeezed my hip, pressed his body against mine, and let his hands slowly move up my chest, down my abdomen, and back up again, following that path he knew by heart. Leave it, dinner can wait a little, he teased, biting my ear lightly. But anyone who knew him well knew that when he did that, he was practically begging me to take control of the situation, and I never refused. I turned around, held him tightly by the waist, and pressed him against the counter, looking straight into his eyes. Ah, is this how you want it? I said, in a deeper, firmer tone. I saw the way he took a deep breath, biting his lips, surrendering himself to me, to my hands. He bent over, holding tightly to the edge of the counter, offering his body to me without saying a word, just with that look I knew so well, a mixture of desire, provocation, and total surrender. My body pressed against his, my hands squeezing his waist, making it clear, without a doubt, who was in control there. The smell of food now mingled with the smell of our skin, with the heat growing between us, and that kitchen was no longer innocent. At that moment, there was no world. Only me. Only him. And this absurd fire that we never bothered to put out. One weekend, my daughter came to spend the holidays here with me. She hadn't been here since she moved to the city for college, and as expected, that changed everything. As much as my life had gone on, as much as things were fine between Miguel and me, I wasn't ready to have that conversation with her. I didn't even know where to start, actually. So, I ended up distancing myself from him a little. Not because I wanted to, but because I didn't know how to deal with it. Miguel noticed right away. He was quiet, kind of keeping to himself, but I could see in his eyes that he was upset. He didn't say anything directly, but I know him. I know every expression, every silence. And that silence said it all. I felt terrible too, because deep down, I knew he didn't deserve it, but the truth is that, even though everything had changed in my life, there were things I wasn't ready to face yet. My daughter's presence here reminded me of everything, of who I was, of how I lived most of my life, and as much as I knew there was no more room for lies, it wasn't that simple. It wasn't a lack of love for Miguel, quite the contrary. It was precisely because I loved him that it hurt so much. It was one afternoon, after work. Miguel and I were in the barn, kissing. Those kisses full of desire, of accumulated longing, of the hours we spent pretending to be just two guys working side by side. His hands on my waist, my hand holding his neck tightly. Our bodies pressed together, our lips searching for each other, as if the world outside didn't even exist. Until it happened. The sound of footsteps, a movement at the door, and when I looked up, my heart just sank into my chest. It was my daughter, standing there, eyes wide open. Without saying a word, she looked at me, looked at Miguel, and without saying anything, she just turned around and left, walking quickly back to the house. I stood there for a few seconds, paralyzed, not knowing what to do. I looked at Miguel, who was also in shock, somewhat unresponsive. I took a deep breath and said, almost without thinking, I need to talk to her. Now. I left the barn almost running. My heart was racing, my stomach was in knots, my head was spinning. Fear, guilt, shame, everything came at once. When I got home, she was sitting on the porch, staring into space. I approached her slowly, sat down beside her, and before I could say anything, she said, "Dad, why didn't you ever tell me?" Her voice wasn't angry. It wasn't judgmental. It was sad, disappointed. I swallowed hard, took a deep breath, and tried to find the right words. Daughter, it's not because I don't trust you. It's not that. It's just, it's hard. Very hard for me. Talking about this, about everything that happened, about who I am today, it's not easy. She was silent for a few seconds, looking at me, until she lowered her head and said, I was surprised. And upset. Not because you're with Miguel, but because you didn't trust me enough to tell me before. That hurt me, more than anything, more than any judgment I could have imagined. You're right, I said, lowering my head. I was wrong. I just didn't know how. I didn't know if you were ready, or if I was ready. But it was never because I didn't trust you. I was just trying to understand all of this inside me. She took a deep breath. She looked at me again, calmer, and said, Okay, I understand. It's different. And, of course I was surprised. But, Dad, you're my dad. I love you. And if this is what makes you happy, then I just want you to be happy. Those words broke me down. A mixture of relief, emotion, a lump in my throat that squeezed, but in a good way. We talked for a while, even laughing, remembering things from our lives, our history, and in the end, everything was fine, much better than I had imagined. And at that moment I realized that what I feared most wasn't her. It was myself. And now, yes, I felt free, truly free. My daughter's vacation came to an end, and she returned to the city. And with that, everything went back to its place. To our place. Miguel and I were finally able to truly reconnect. It had been a few days since we had touched each other, since we had given ourselves to each other as usual. The desire, the longing, the lust, it had all built up. But that night, I didn't just want to satisfy my longing. I wanted more. I wanted it to be special. I wanted it to be unforgettable. I asked him to go for a drive. I grabbed a bottle of wine, some snacks, threw everything in the truck, and we headed for the top of the mountain. From up there, the view was simply perfect. The sky was completely starry, and the moon was huge, full, beautiful, lighting everything up as if it were daytime. The kind of scene that makes you look and think, this is it. When we got there, I spread the sheet on the ground, right where we could see the entire farm below. I opened the wine, poured 2 glasses, and handed one to him. We looked at each other. And, without saying a word, we made a toast. We took a few sips, laughing, talking, looking at that absurdly beautiful sky, until, in an impulse that had been growing inside me for days, I held his hands. He looked at me, serious, attentive, as if he already sensed that something different was coming. I took a deep breath, squeezed his hands, and said, looking straight into his eyes, Love, you know I love you, and you are very, very important to me. We already spend most of our time together, and I wanted to know if you want to live with me. For a few seconds, he stood completely still. He looked at me, blinking slowly, as if he couldn't believe what he had just heard. Then, his voice breaking, he replied softly, Honey, are you serious? And the moment he asked that, a tear rolled down his cheek. I smiled, ran my hand over his face, wiping away the tear, and said firmly, from the bottom of my heart, Of course, love. I'm serious. I've never been more serious in my life. He smiled. That smile I know so well, that breaks me down every time. And, holding my hands even tighter, he replied without thinking, Of course I do, love. Of course I do. He leaned in, pulled my face with both hands, and kissed me. A slow kiss, full of love, of truth, of everything we had built up to that point. We lay down on the sheet, still kissing, under that bright sky, as if the entire universe had stopped just to look at us. And there, between kisses, caresses, and glances, I knew that this was the right place, the right life, the right person. Lying on the sheet, under that starry sky and the light of the full moon that illuminated everything around us, our bodies sought each other as if the whole world had disappeared. The wind was light, the night was warm, and everything seemed too perfect to be real. Miguel was lying on his side, looking at me, running his fingertips over my face, my chin, as if he wanted to memorize every detail of me. His gaze, full of love, desire, surrender. I pulled him closer, holding him firmly by the nape of his neck, and our lips met in a hot, deep, long kiss. His hands slid down my shoulders, down my back, and at the same time, my hands were already squeezing his waist, holding him tight, feeling that body I knew so well, and that still drove me crazy every time. Our clothes came off slowly, one piece at a time, between kisses, low laughter, and looks that said more than any words could. The touch of his skin on mine, under the moonlight, seemed even warmer, more alive, more intense. I laid him down on the sheet, looking at him as if he were the most beautiful thing I had ever seen in my life. And, in fact, he was. The moonlight outlined every line of his body, every curve, every detail. His breathing quickened, his chest rose and fell rapidly, and his eyes, locked on mine, begged, "Take me, feel me, make me yours." I lay down on top of him, fitting my body to his, our legs intertwining, our hips meeting. His hands held me tightly by the back, scratching lightly, pulling, guiding, as if he didn't want any space between us. My every movement made his body arch, press against me. He bit his lips, moaned softly in my ear, begged me for more, and I gave it to him. More and more. Deeper, harder, more hours. The sound of our breathing mixed with the wind, the swaying leaves, our moans muffled in that immensity, and all the while, the moon up above, witnessing everything. Lighting up our bodies, reflecting off the sweat that was beginning to drip down our skin, illuminating our gazes that didn't stray for a single second. I held on tight to his waist, guiding our movements, feeling him give himself completely, without fear, without reserve, just mine, entirely, for me. His moans grew louder, hoarser, more urgent, and I sped up, feeling the pleasure grow, take over, invade everything. Our bodies trembled, our hands clenched, our mouths sought each other out in the midst of it all, as if we needed to make sure that, in that moment, we were one. The climax came strong, intense, overwhelming. His body arched against mine, his eyes closed, his moans mingling with my name escaping his lips. Love, love. We held on to each other, squeezed each other, held each other as if the whole world depended on it, as if nothing else existed beyond that moment, that night, that total surrender. When everything calmed down, still panting, we lay there, sweaty, embraced, looking up at the sky. The moon was still shining brightly, beautiful, illuminating our bodies, as if to remind us that from then on, we were one. He lay down on my chest, ran his hands slowly over my belly, and whispered, in that sweet, half-tired, half-passionate tone, "I love you." I smiled, ran my hand through his hair, and replied softly, just so he could hear, "I love you too, my love. And now, we're together forever." The days passed quickly. We're living together, and every day we wake up side by side, we realize that we're falling more in love. Every day is a learning experience, a new discovery about each other, about life as a couple, about love, about partnership. We understand that not every day is easy, that we're not always, well, we don't always wake up smiling, but that doesn't matter. Because, in the end, what really matters is that no matter what happens, we know we will always be by each other's side. And that's what gives us strength. Strength to face anything, to face challenges, difficult days, and to celebrate together the good days, the achievements, the simple moments, which, in fact, are the most valuable. Today, we have the most beautiful and truest certainty in life, that we have found, in each other, the love of our lives. And if you've made it this far, I hope you enjoyed our story. I know it didn't start out the best way. full of doubts, fears, mistakes, pain. But today I can understand. Understand that yes, that betrayal back then needed to happen. Because if it weren't for that, my life wouldn't have taken this turn. I wouldn't have discovered a part of myself that I didn't even know existed. I wouldn't have found the love of my life. If you liked this story, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, comment below what you thought, and, of course, the uncut version is here in the comments for you to check out. With much love and affection, Rob and Miguel.